Act 20, Xianglings' Learning Journey. Time: the 13th winter of the Red Chamber. Location: the Grand View Garden. Character: Wang Shifeng, Pinger, Jia Tianchun, Li Wan, Xiangling, and Lin Daiyu, as well as several others. Character profile card. Name: Xiangling.
Zhan Inglian.
Gender: female. Alias: Qiuling Ling Lady, Sister Ling. Identity: daughter of Zhen Shirin, later became the concubine of Xuepan. Personality: hardworking, gentle and quiet, strong yet weak. Father: Zhen Shirin. Experience: at the age of 4, she was kidnapped and sold to the young master Fengyuan of Jinling because of the neglect of the family slave Huiqi. Along the way, she caught the eye of Xuepan, who then killed Fengyuan and took her away. Initially serving as a maid for Aunt Xue, she later became Xuepan's concubine. She was brought into the Grand View Garden by Bao Chai and given the name Xiangling. After the establishment of the Begonia Poetry Society, due to financial expenses and improper management of the society, only a few formal activities have been held. The sisters discussed and decided that they had to rely on Feng Jie to resolve this. So, the President Li Wan took the sisters to find Feng Jie, intending to persuade her to join. Feng Jie was talking with Pinger, and when she saw everyone had arrived, she smiled and said, "The people who came today seem like they were invited with invitations." Tan Chun first smiled and said, "Today we have 2 main things. One is mine and the other is Fourth Sister's, with Granny's input as well." Feng Jie asked, "What is so urgent?" Tan Chun said, "We have established a poetry society, and someone missed the first activity." Everyone felt awkward to say anything out of courtesy, but this disrupted the organization. So, we are asking you to be the impartial supervisor of the society. Also, Fourth Sister wants to paint the scenery of the Grand View Garden, but we don't have enough painting materials. We asked Granny, and she said there might be some leftovers from before, so we should look for them. If we really can't find any, we will have to buy some. Feng Jie laughed after listening, saying, "I'm not good at poetry or dry stuff, but I'm up for eating." Tan Chun quickly said, "You don't have to write poetry. You just have to supervise us. If anyone is lazy, you can punish them." Feng Jie said, "Don't try to trick me. I already guessed. You clearly want me to be the god of wealth, providing money for you. You established a poetry society and probably need to take turns being the host. If the monthly funds are not enough, you want to rope me in to ask for money, right?" Everyone couldn't help but laugh and joked. "You guessed it right." Feng Jie joked along, agreed to help, and generously took out 50 taels of silver as funding. Speaking of the Xue family, the stupefied bully Xuepan recently went out to take a stroll, so Bao Chai brought Xiangling to live together at the Hengwu Garden. That day after dinner, Bao Chai went to see grandmother Jia, and Xiangling went to the Xiaoxiang Pavilion to find Daiyu. Xiangling smiled and said to Daiyu, "Since I have moved in here and have some free time, if the young lady could teach me how to write poetry, that would be my lucky fate." Daiyu also smiled and said, "Want to learn how to write poetry? Then consider me as your teacher. Although I am not very skilled, I can still teach you the basics." Xiangling became happy and immediately bowed to her master. Daiyu said, "Actually, writing poetry is not difficult at all. It's just about beginning, developing, transitioning, and concluding. The developing and transitioning parts are 2 pairs of couplets, with flat tones against oblique tones, empty against solid, solid against empty. If inspiration strikes and you come up with something clever and wonderful, you don't need to worry about flat tones, oblique tones, empty and solid." Xiangling suddenly realized, No wonder some of the poems we usually read have very neat parallelism, while some do not. I didn't understand before, but after you explained it, it turns out that these rules are not necessarily strict. Dayu continued, the most important thing is not the wording, but the intention. If the intention is good and original, even without beautiful wording, it is still good. This is called not letting words harm the meaning. Xianglings said, I only love the words of Lu Yu. The heavy curtains do not roll up for a long time. The ancient inkstone is slightly concave and gathers a lot of ink. It's so vivid and interesting. Dayu said, never read such poems. You don't understand poetry, so you like such simple ones when you see them. Once you fall into this trap, it's hard to learn. I have a complete collection of Wang Majia here. You should carefully study the 105-character regulated poems inside first, then read 1 or 207-character regulated verse by Old Du, and then read 1 or 207-character regulated verse by Li Qinglian. With a foundation of the poems of these three people, read some others, and with your intelligence, I believe you can become a poet in less than a year. Upon hearing this, Xiangling was filled with joy and quickly said, Good girl, please lend me these books. I will bring them back and read a few poems at night. Dayu was also generous, quickly taking the 5-character regulated poem by Wang Yucheng and giving it to Xiangling, saying, Just look at the ones circled in red. These are all the ones I have selected. If you don't understand anything, you can ask Miss Bao or ask me. Xiangling returned to the Hengwu garden with her poetry books, sitting under the lamp and reading them one by one. She was so engrossed in it that she ignored Baochai's urging for her to go to sleep. Early in the morning, just after Dayu finished grooming, Xiangling came to return the book and borrow another one. Dayu smiled and asked, How many poems did you memorize? Xiangling replied, I have read all the ones with a red circle drawn on them. Dayu asked again, What can be appreciated? Xiangling smiled and said, There may be some truth to it, but I'm not sure if it's right. Let me tell you what I think. In my opinion, the beauty of poetry lies in the fact that there are some meanings that cannot be expressed in words, but when you think about it, they seem authentic. Some may seem unreasonable, but upon thinking about it, they actually make sense and have emotions. After a moment of contemplation, Dayu replied, Your words are quite intriguing. Where did you derive this understanding from which poems? Xiangling smiled and said, I see in that poem, on the frontier it says, The lonely smoke in the desert rises straight, the setting sun in the river is round. How can smoke rise straight? And, of course, the sun is round. At first glance, straight seems unreasonable and round seems too mundane. But when I close the book, this scene actually appears in my mind. Trying to find 2 words to replace them, I couldn't find anything more suitable. Also, as the sun sets, the rivers and lakes turn white. With the rising tide, the world takes on a greenish hue. These 2 words, white and green, also seem unreasonable. But upon careful consideration, it must be these 2 words in order to accurately describe it. While speaking, Bao Yu and Tan Chun also arrived, sitting on the side listening to her talk. After a while, Bao Yu burst out laughing. All right, you have already grasped the essentials. If you keep talking more, it will only become more confusing. Quickly start practicing poetry. That is the proper way. Tan Chun said, Tomorrow I will issue an invitation to let Xiangling join the club. Xiangling hurriedly said, Please don't make fun of me, miss. I just envy it in my heart, so I wanted to learn how to play around with it. Tan Chun and Dayu both laughed and said, Who isn't just having fun? If people were to say we were seriously writing poetry and it got outside of the Grandview Garden, wouldn't they just laugh their heads off? Upon hearing them say so, Xiangling no longer declined and officially joined the poetry club. On that day, everyone was critiquing a poem written by Xiangling when suddenly a maid came to report that many young ladies and madams had arrived at the ladies' place, all of them unfamiliar faces. Everyone eagerly rushed to Mrs. Wang's place, where the place was crowded with people. There was Xing's aunt and her daughter Shiyan. There was Fengjia's older brother Wang Ren. There was Li Wan's widowed sister-in-law and her two daughters, Li Wen and Li Qi, and also Xue Pan's cousin Xue Ke. So many relatives suddenly came. Grandmother Jia and Madame Wang were both very happy. After watching the bustle, Bao Yu returned to the Garden of Contentment and told Shiren, Qingwen, and others about it, and he couldn't stop praising the few younger sisters from the relatives' house. Just as they were speaking, Tan Chun also arrived, smiling and saying, "Now our poetry club can develop and grow again." Bao Yu was also very happy. Of course, I wonder if they have ever learned how to write poetry. Tan Chun said, "I just asked, most of them are generally able to. Even if they are not proficient, it doesn't matter. Look at Xiangling's poetry. Now she is doing very well." After this incident, the Grand View Garden became livelier than before. Apart from Li Wan and Xue Baochai, the others were all children aged 15 to 17. Even they themselves couldn't figure out who was older or younger. They casually called each other brother, sister, little sister.